Most of the time, disrespect isn't accidental. It's a test, and you have 5 seconds. In those 5 seconds, the way that you respond determines whether or not you pass or whether or not you lose your authority and have the disrespectful behavior keep happening. Now, understand, it's really difficult to handle disrespect, especially if you're someone who maybe grew up a little bit more introverted or shy. For me, I was like that. I used to be a massive pushover and I was afraid of handling disrespect because I didn't want to be confrontational or mean. Until I learned what I'm about to share with you in this video. By the end of this video, you'll know how to handle disrespect without it feeling like it's difficult or like you're being mean. My name is Nick Lutalo. I teach communication skills to entrepreneurs, and in this video, you'll learn what took me years to learn in just 15 minutes. Now, I'm gonna teach you something here that is honestly pretty controversial and mildly unconventional, but it's what worked for me, and it made it so that anytime that I have to handle disrespect or set boundaries for myself, it's so easy now. This thing is delusional self-belief. Now, I'm going to explain what that is in a second, because a lot of people might see this as being arrogant or being egotistical. That's not what it is. Having borderline delusional levels of self-belief is simply taking your self-image and your self-worth and your self-esteem from about here, where it was when I was dealing with this problem, to about here. Because one thing that I've seen is that a lot of people have normalized self-deprecation, self-deprecating humor, and just having low self-esteem in general. They'll make it normal to go like, oh yeah, I suck, I'm terrible at X or blank or whatever it is. Or to think, oh yeah, I'm the worst, I suck. And what this does is that it makes it so that when someone does disrespect you, you can't really stand up for yourself very well. One, because you might feel afraid to, but also because you might think that they're actually kind of right. That's why you feel offended when someone disrespects you. Because what they're saying at least has the illusion of having an element of truth to it. But when you have incredibly high levels of self-belief, to the point where it almost doesn't even make sense for you to, that's where, when someone disrespects you, it gets deflected. So how exactly do you do this? You need to elevate your self-belief in the way that you think about yourself, the way that you speak to yourself, to levels that if someone were to read your mind, they would think that you're arrogant and mean and ridiculous and narcissistic. Now, those all sound bad, and yes, those are bad qualities. But if you only think it in your head, and you don't, obviously, don't take this too far and go and speak to people and go like, I'm better than you, you're terrible, and be all mean. What this does for you is that it makes it so that you can actually set boundaries because you actually see yourself at the level as someone who actually is worthy of setting these boundaries. If you're someone like me who had incredibly low levels of self-esteem, you can't just take the normal advice of just be confident, bro, or just speak up or stand up straight with your shoulders back. You need a radical reprogramming. Now, again, don't take this too far, but if you implement this in the right way, it'll make you unstoppable anytime that you need to handle disrespect. So, when raising your beliefs, what are some things that you can do? If you're someone who has accomplished a lot in life, maybe you've made a lot of business success, you've made a lot of money, maybe you do good work, you're really good at what you do, or maybe you've built a massive following on social media. Use those. Look for any proof that you have and think that, oh yeah, I've built this massive thing. I'm really good at this. I'm so good at this. I've made a massive audience, or whatever it is. And think all of those things and let you raise your self-belief a little bit higher. Of course, don't let it show when you're speaking to people, but just think like that. That'll go such a long way for you. Now, if you're someone who doesn't have very many achievements, maybe you haven't done very much, maybe you're a little bit younger, that's completely fine. That's where the delusional part comes in, where you just think of yourself as a lot better than you actually are. So you go like, oh yeah, I'm really good. blank. I'm so good. I'm great. Because when you think like this, it makes it so that you're covering your bases because no one else is going to think like this for you. You're not a kid anymore. When you're a kid, everyone tells you, oh yeah, you can be anything. You can do anything. And then when you're an adult, people tell you, be realistic. Think realistic. You're being delusional. Do those thoughts actually serve you? If you're here skeptical, because I imagine this is pretty controversial advice. If you're here being skeptical, think, are those thoughts actually serving you? Wouldn't it be better to think the thoughts that actually do serve you and still act like a normal person when you're interacting with people, but at least have these thoughts so that it can inform the way that you respond when you're disrespected? That's the first step. So this might be something that you need to sit down and reflect on and maybe write and journal about, where you think, okay, where exactly am I holding myself back in the way that I think? And how exactly can I raise my self-belief to make it so that anytime someone disrespects me, it gets deflected? Now, what are the actual practical things that you can do when someone disrespects you? Because having the belief is the prerequisite, but it's not the actions. Now, one of the best things that I've learned is actually something that you probably have never heard of. And it's a technique that I like to call the third grader response. So imagine if you were at an elementary school. I don't like the way that sounds. Imagine you were walking around and some random little third grader comes up to you and they come up to you and they say, you have stinky feet, or you are a diaper dude, or just some stupid third grade insults. How would you respond? Would you get all offended and try and defend yourself and go like, no, I wash my feet every single day? Or would you just laugh it off because it's just some little kid? What are they saying? It doesn't mean anything to you. You know it's not true. When you have this kind of self-belief, this is how you should see maybe about 60 to 65% of disrespect. A lot of the time, it's not as serious as it may seem. We're going to get into what you should do in those more serious situations. But in most situations, it's never that serious. Sometimes it's when it's someone that is a friend or maybe someone you built a lot of rapport with and they're just making a little joke. Other times, it's something that is not worth your time. Most of these situations are beneath you. They're not worth your time. So when you treat it like it's a little third grader calling you a diaper dude, what you can do is just laugh. Laugh like it's a third grader. Go like, okay, come on, really. Let's get back to work. This is something that's extremely powerful if you're someone especially who's building a personal brand and someone's leaving a hate comment on your YouTube video or something like that. People will always be hating. People will always be poking fun at you. It's a normal thing. It happens. So when you see these things, you see these hate comments from maybe someone who's a little bit of a miserable person, you think, okay, that's fine, and just laugh it off. I don't even want to be like this person anyway. That's what's going to make the impact for about 60-65% of issues of disrespect. You just laugh it off because you're not even offended in the first place. But what do you do when it's a little bit more serious? I have a technique that I like to use that's mostly frictionless, and I call it conversational confrontation. So in a situation where someone maybe says something that isn't exactly the nicest, or maybe is a little bit passive aggressive, or maybe they cross a line a little bit. This works best, especially when it's with someone that you're in good rapport with and you don't want to hurt the relationship, or when it's with a friend, or maybe it might be a client or something like that who maybe says something a little bit too far. In the situation, you do a casual confrontation. It's almost like a warning shot. So a couple things that you could say to do this could be something like, hey, too far. Or hey, bro, relax. You're doing a little bit too much here. Or hey, too much. A few things like that. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. The key here is to say it calmly. If it's a friend or someone you're in good rapport with, you can even say it with a smile. What it's meant to be is a warning shot. And it shows them, hey, they're crossing a line. And in that situation, most people will stop. Now, the key here is to do it with calm, assertive body language to show that you haven't been affected by it. If you implemented the delusional self-belief tactic I talked about before, you probably wouldn't have been offended by it in the first place. But you also don't want to make it seem like you're going like, hey, too far, you're being too angry with it. So with this, it's a calm, casual conversation. You have calm body language, you're grounded. Hey, too far. If you want to learn a little bit more about body language, I have a free body language guide, top link in the description in my free school community. I don't want to make this entire segment about body language because there's a lot that can go into it. So if you want to learn that more for yourself, check out the link there. That should help you out with that. But all that you need to know, keep it calm, slow, controlled. And in this situation, when you do casual confrontation, you should be able to handle another maybe 20% of those higher stakes or higher impact levels of disrespect. Now, what do you do when you're in a situation where they've actually crossed a little bit more of a line and you can tell that they're trying to be a little bit more provocative? They're trying to get on their nerves and they're deliberately trying to test you. In this situation, which is usually about maybe 10% of cases of disrespect, so it's a little bit rare, what do? You should use a tactic that I like to call getting them to double down. Because most people, when you challenge them in these kinds of situations, they won't actually double down. If you get them to repeat what they said or to explain themselves, a lot of the time, most people will just crumble because they're not used to being challenged like that. And you don't have to do it in a way that makes you seem mean. You can do it in a way that's calm, non-reactive, and still radiates authority. So in this situation, the way that you start is by just asking them a question. So they say what they said, maybe some mean thing or whatever, and maybe the first time you hit them with a casual confrontation, and they do it again. And you're like, hey, what did you mean by that? You ask them a question. Or, hey, I'm not sure I heard what you said. Can you repeat that? Or, hey, I'm not sure what you're trying to say here. Can you say that one more time? Or can you elaborate? When you do that, it'll cause them to either freeze up and go like, oh no, I didn't actually mean it. It's fine. Problem solved. Or what they will do is actually double down. This is, in most cases, they won't actually double down. But in this situation, when they do double down, and if they're actually trying to be confrontational, and they go like, hey, yeah, no, I don't like the way you do this, or whatever mean thing that they said. In this situation, what you do is you use a two-part framework. Call out what they said, or what they did that was disrespectful, and you tell them what you want. So it's important to do both of these. If you just call out the behavior, then you're not really telling them what you want to do. If you tell them what to do, then you're not calling out the behavior and they could do it again. So if you call out the behavior and then you tell them what you want, you show them what's wrong and you show them what you want them to do. So in this situation, for example, you might say something like, hey, I don't appreciate you doing that. If you have a problem with me, please just say it straight up. Or maybe you might say something like, hey, I don't appreciate you speaking to me like that, but I do appreciate you giving me feedback. If you're going to give me feedback, please keep it respectful. And maybe you might say, hey, that wasn't cool. If we're going to talk to each other, let's be respectful here. That's it. That's all you have to do. It's really not that hard. Now, I'm not going to give you a big list of phrases that you can use because in this situation, it's best to make it your own. To take this framework where you call out the behavior and then say what you want and say it in your own words, the way that you would. Because if you have these copy-paste phrases, a lot of the time what can happen is that you can come off a little bit scripted and it won't feel natural and it introduces even more friction when you do have to stand up for yourself. Our goal here is to limit as much friction as possible so that you can stand up for yourself without it feeling incredibly difficult. So if you can take out a pen and paper right now or after this video and write down all of the different situations that you can remember where you were disrespected in the past. Write out exactly how you would get them to double down, and then you also write out how exactly you would write your call out and how you would write out the telling them what you want them to do. So you can write that out for a bunch of different situations and give yourself some templates that you can use. This is something that I would actually work with you on if you want to call with me. I just can't do this right now because it's a YouTube video. If you do want to work with me, check out the link in my bio and we can see if it's a good fit. But doing this and having these ideas for words and phrases that you can say in these situations that are in your words makes it so much less frictionless. And implementing all of these strategies, whether it's the delusional self-belief as the prerequisite, and then using techniques like the third grade response, casual confrontation, and then getting them to double down, will help you to be able to handle disrespect in any situation that you go into, because you have the respect for yourself to actually stand up for yourself in the first place, and you know what you actually need to say to curb the behavior when it comes out. So I hope this was helpful. If you have trouble speaking with authority under pressure in your business, check out this video right here. But outside of that, I hope you have a great rest of your day. And remember, don't overthink it. You're a lot better at speaking than you think that you are. Have a good one.